Hello, in this video segment, I'll talk about fragments and dialog boxes. So fragments are like controls in the sense that you can use them in activity. So I have this picture here. Fragment will run on top of an activity just like a button or any other control. Fragments can contain other controls. So in this picture, I have a fragment that has two buttons. So in this sense, fragments are similar to user controls. If you come from Windows programming, these things are called user controls in Windows. Fragments has an additional usage in Android because in Android you can rotate the screen. So fragments can solve the rotation problem via the set retain instance function. So after going over fragments, I'll go over dialog boxes. So here are some examples of dialog boxes. This is the Android API guides, user interface, dialogs. So the presentation on dialog boxes, the material is basically the same as in this page, but I expanded it a little bit and I also reordered things. In this page, they're going to be talking about fragments, dialog fragment in the very beginning. So in my presentation, I'll go over the alert dialog box first. So I have two slides about the alert dialog box, and then I'll talk about the dialog fragment. The dialog fragment is basically a wrapper around the alert dialog, because if you use the alert dialog by itself, if you use this by itself, you're going to see the dialog box all right, just like that. But when you rotate your phone, it's going to disappear. So to make dialog boxes work over rotation, you need the dialog fragment. The dialog fragment also allows you to use custom layout in your dialog boxes. So when I talk about dialog fragment, I address those two things. First, dialog fragments is for the rotation issue. So I'll talk about that in one slide. And the other reason to use dialog fragment is to use a custom layout with your dialog boxes. So I'll address that second issue. And I have one more slide that's about some miscellaneous useful stuff, like how do you automatically show a keyboard. And I'll go over pickers very briefly. Pickers are a kind of dialog boxes. So this is the web page for dialog box. Down here, they're gonna have pickers down here. So I have it open up over here. So pickers are just special dialog boxes that let you pick like the time or the date and so forth. Okay. So now I'll talk about fragments. Right here, I have just a default, project created by the wizard. This main activity, the usual on create, and this that we don't actually need, but I leave it there anyways. Too lazy to delete it. And the layout file that the default stuff. Okay, so the first thing you want to do in creating the fragment is you create the layout file. So do that. So layout files are down here, layout folder, down here, go to new, go to the Android XML file, and they already have layout here, and they already have linear layout as the default layout, the uppermost the root element. So I'll call it fragment main. This is just a naming convention. Notice how the wizard calls the main activity layout file activity main. So this because it's a fragment, I start out fragment, and because it's pairs with the main activity, I call it main. So there. Okay, and since I'll be talking about the rotation issue eventually, I'll use that basic example where there's a label or a text box, a text view. and then there's a button. So here they'll say that, you know, don't have enough. You have to set the height and the width. So match parent, height, wrap content. Okay. Give it an ID. Actually, since IDs are global, I'll just sort of, you know, do this prefix thing. But the example is so simple, I just forget about it. That's my kind of my habit, but okay. The button should have a text too, like click me. And text view, the label is gonna be for like a counter. So in the beginning 0, and when I click the button, it kind of increments. You can see it's 0 barely. There. So it's 0. And the problem previously is that when the phone's rotated, this thing gets recreated, and then the count will reset to 0. So later in the example, I'll be using the set retain fragment feature to take care of that rotation problem. But right now, okay, so the first step is create layout. So I just did that already. It's, you know, layout, just label and a button. Oops. And then in the main activity, you instantiate a fragment like this. But you know, this name is the fragment class. So this, the very next step, I'll create a fragment class. So here, new class. Ooh, can't see it. I'll use the toolbar button here. New class. See, new Java class. Right, I had main activity, right? So normally I, you know, just name it something similar. Oh, the fragment class is something that you're subclassing the fragment. So fragment, and there are two fragments. There's the support v4, and there's Android.app. The Android.app will require Android 3.0 or something like that, some API level 11. This one, the support, this version of the fragment object will work on more Android phones. So a lot of people will use this one because it's going to work on more Android phones, but officially you're supposed to use this one if you don't need to preserve the backward compatibility, and I don't need to, right? My phone's Android 4, so I use that like this and just finish. There's nothing going to be inherited. Save. There's an error already. So like the error says that call requires API 11, minimum's 8. That's why, you know, that's why some people use the support .v4 version of Fragment, because if you use that one, you don't need to increase the API level. So I'll just increase the API level. It's, for stuff like this, it's easier to just go here and, you know, go to XML view and just easily find it. Basically, if you're modifying existing settings, it's usually easier to just go to the XML and look for it. Okay, but if you're you're adding a new entry into this file, it's a lot of times it's easier to use the wizard, because when you're using adding a new entry, you don't know what to type in. Okay, so like in this case, it's here 11, but you know, but looking for this, like finding it here and then here, it's actually that actually might be more work than just going here and looking for it, because what you're looking for already. But if you're typing in a new feature, you don't know what to type in, right? So it's easier to just use these boxes like this, whatever, and then because you don't know what to type in. So anyways, changing features, just go to XML. Okay, so that takes care of the class. Before I can use that tag, I have to do this. To inflate. So right now, if I go here, if I go main activity, I add this tag to instantiate a fragment, right? So here main activity code, don't really need to worry about that for a while. I'm using pure XML. Fragments can be created in this XML, or it can be created in code. But just like everything else, basically, you can create in XML or you can do it in code. But most of the time, it's just XML. So fragment, it's a fragment tag, name, Android name. So control to bring up the auto suggest. So I had this one. Okay, so it's this one. Oh, the yellow line is gonna say you need the ID. So ID. And there's no more yellow line here, but also fragments also gonna require the width and height. So just go back and do the width and height thing. Usually I make the width as wide as possible, but limit the height. Usually I use linear layout, and so these things just stack on top of each other, like in a long list. Okay. So that's the fragment tag. So when I start up main activity, it's going to load this XML file, this layout file, and it's going to try to instantiate this fragment class. Okay, it's going to put that like here, like this where this there's a box here, right? Click preview layout from this. But currently right now, this class, let me see. This class is completely empty, so it's not going to do anything right now, right? So the code instantiates, the code will see the fragment tag and run this class thing, but the class doesn't do anything. So this class needs to instantiate this XML layout, the fragment XML layout. Okay. So, and the way you do that is you have to write on create view. So on create view here. So you need to return a view. So you can see that when I auto-generated this thing from Eclipse, they had this thing here. So this thing needs to return a view like this, and the view is obtained from this XML file, this layout file. So the way to get that is by using the inflate thing. So they have an inflator object for you already. Remember in that other presentation, that video about those layout controls, the grid layout and the list layout, you can use get inflator to get that inflator object. But in this case, this code is very similar to that, to this stuff before. It's very similar to this stuff here. For the grid view video, I also did the inflation there. The only difference is over there I had to call get layout inflator to get the inflator object, but this time around the the object's being passed in. So inflate, right? And once again, like before, there's this attached to root flag, and it's false basically. Okay, so I'm using this one. Resource is the that layout file that I just created. You know, that fragment main layout file, and root is being passed in. See, root is of the type view group. No, they're going there. Don't. Okay, so which is being passed in, and attached root is false. I already mentioned that attached root is something like complicated. So here I also have the attached to root issue. So I already mentioned, in that old video, I already went over attached root is like some complicated thing that it's better just follow directions and just no need to question what it does. So that's basically it. Oh, of course, right? Inflate is going to return you a view, right? Yeah, like that. Okay, inflate returns a view. Okay. So if I run it right now, it should display this thing on the phone. Okay. So basically, what happened is that the Android will try to inflate the main activity, the layout file for main activity, and as it does so, it's going to encounter the fragment tag. So it's going to run this class, okay, and then inside this class, for the onCreate view, it's going to inflate fragment main, and then fragment main is the thing with the text box and the button. So let's kind of review what's going to happen. Okay, so I'm going to run it now. So that's you see it, but they don't. This thing doesn't do anything, right? There's no code, right? To make it do things, you have to add event handlers and that sort of thing. So that's what I'll do next. Just add my event handlers. I mentioned that I want to have this thing count upward, right? So I'll get a reference to the button, view that, find view by ID, that thing, right, this thing. Oh, I have to cast it. Set on click listener to create the event handler. And the event handler, I'll just put the counter in the text view, right? Counter. Okay. Oh, so I also need to get a reference to the text view, because else this is gonna, this is gonna be null or something, right? So now remember, I'm giving these things really generic names, so in a real application, you probably want to have some prefix like this. Okay, so this is text view in the main, because you're going to have multiple activities, multiple fragments, But for example, I'll just do this. Okay, should be okay now if I run it. But it's still going to suffer from the rotation issue that I previously mentioned. Not counting it. Oops. I actually have to increment it, right? Else it's not going to do anything. So there. But if I rotate it, it's going to reset to 0 like that. So cover this. So this thing takes care of that rotation issue that I mentioned. So notice how when I rotate it goes to 0 again. And if you're using an activity, you have to save, you have to save the counter to a bundle and then restore that. So that's the other solution to a rotation issue. Like over here. So when you rotate, this function is going to happen. So you save your counter there, and then on create, inside on create, you restore the counter. So back in that other video, I used that approach. But Fragments lets you use this approach. You just call this function. You don't have to do anything. So, but you do have to have on create because this is on create view. So I mentioned that this function is listed under. This function is to be utilized inside on create. The reason it has to do with the fragment life cycle. So I'll see if I can illustrate. I'll show you the life cycle diagram thing. So search for fragment, go to guides. Fragments is such an important topic. Of course, they're going to have a guide here. So they have this. See, so on create happens first, and then on create view happens. Okay. This is important because you want this counter to be the right value. You don't want it to be 0, right? But this is guaranteed to happen. If I do the set retain instance thing inside on create, if I do it here, it's guaranteed to happen before on create view because of the lifecycle thing. So that's why this is why this thing is done inside on create, so that by the time the code gets here, the variables will be correct. So I'll do this too, right? I have to do this too. Let me do the on create thing first. Then I'll explain why I had to do that. On create, hit enter. What's it set? Set retain instance. So just like I said, you just one line. What this thing does is that the view, this is still going to happen, right? Just like in the style lockbox. So the view is going to get recreated, but these variables are going to be kept from your previous session. Like when you rotate, they're going to recreate the view, to recreate the button and the handlers and all that only. The variable, this variable is going to be retained from previous, the pre-rotation thing. Because the view is recreated, like the text view, that label is still going to get recreated. So that label is going to get, it's going to get the default text of 0, okay? But the variable is preserved. So let me just run it here. So all I have added is just that one line. Let me just add it. It's still not completely correct, but let me just run it to showcase what that one line is doing, right? So I do this, I do rotation now. So it went to 0. Now notice that I just click on this one time and it's going to be the right number. It's not going to be 1, it's going to be like 5 or 6 or 4 or 5 or something like that, right? Click that, that's going to be 7, 8, 9, 8. Right. So what's going on is that one line that I added is preserving the counter variable. However, text view, it still shows 0 because the object has the default property of 0. So just like over here, you just have to update it. Okay, so it's just like that. Okay. Now this only works if by the time the code gets here, the counter has already been, figured out, right? Okay, so run it. So do rotate, rotate. It's still 6, right? It's not going to be 0 or whatever. Okay. So just to remind everyone once again that you could still use that older approach. And actually in the dialog boxes, that's the preferred way to do it, right? You can still use the approach where you save things inside onSave instance, and then you restore things inside onCreate. Notice that onCreate, this is the fragment. Even for a fragment object, the onCreate will have this bundle object. So you can save variables inside here and restore here. And it will be correct because onCreate happens before onCreate view. Okay. Well, onCreate view doesn't have that. Oh, onCreate view also has it here. Okay. But then if you try to restore it here, you have to make sure, if you're trying to restore the counter value here, you have to restore the counter before this line, right? So somewhere up here, if you restore the counter like down here, then it's not going to work, right? You already sent your text view to a wrong number. So by restoring variables here, you guarantee to run it before this stuff. So that's what I want to point out. And finally, one of the most frequently used functions when coding inside fragments, get activity. When you're inside a fragment, the get activity will get the hosting activity. So you need that for all kinds of things. So one thing, like for example, the toast function, right? So over here, the click event handler. So toast, make text. So this thing requires a context object. Yeah. Context, right? A context object. Now, a fragment is not a context object. If you look for fragment and activity, see fragment just inherit from the object, right? Fragment is not context. So activity will inherit from the context. So whenever you need a context object, okay, you need to you're using get activity. Text I'm showing. And the duration. How long? Just to make sure you can see it. Short is actually long enough. Okay, so I'll run this to show the get activity. So you see I made it long, so it hangs around for a while, right? Plus one got clicked, so that's. Get activity is more than this. Just it's like, a lot of functions need context, and so you need get activity. Okay, so that's covering the fragment class. Now I'll go over how to use the alert dialog to build dialog boxes. So the most basic example of a dialog box is the message box. Just a dialog box with an OK button and a simple message. So I'll use that. This is the event handler for the button from the previous section. So instead of doing this I'll create my alert dialog box here. Okay, so creating an alert dialog uses this, and then alert dialog.show. So okay, so alert dialog log message box, right? Oh. So it's like this, but of course, at this point, this thing's null. So, okay. Dot builder. Oh, it's thinking builder.build. It's builder.create. Okay. So the plan is this: you create a builder thing, a builder object, and you call these functions to build a dialog box. So builder. So here's that get activity thing again. Oh. Can't be simply builder. It's this. Either that or you have to import. Okay. So to build a basic message box, you need set message, set the positive button. That's like the OK button, and then call .create. So .set message. Use a resource ID or just use a string hardcode. Hello world. The positive button, that's like the OK button. So it's just like OK. That's the text that'll be on the button, and the event handler. Right now I'm not gonna handle it. I'm not gonna have the one. It's just a display thing, so I'm not gonna have it. And builder.create, right? Or it should be like this. So builder object, configure the object, and then call the create function to create an alert dialog object, and then show. Okay, so that's basically here, right? These functions, and then alert dialog.show. Okay, I'll just run this right now. So I'm gonna click on this. Better do it here. There. So that's your dialog box, basic dialog box. So that's the most basic usage. Just two functions: create, show. Okay, so there are a bunch of more options. So there's a positive button. So there must be a negative button, right? And there's a neutral button. So kind of illustrate that. So message is like, are you Lewis? So positive button is like maybe yes. Negative button, oh. No. I'll add in the event handler next, and the neutral button. Okay, so now I add in the event handler. So notice this. Okay, dialog interface. Okay, copy, right? Control C, copy. Because Eclipse never puts this stuff in here. Like, I always have to put it in, right? Some kind of stupid bug. So here, I have to put it in like that. So that's why I'm doing this last, because, you know, it's sort of like copy and paste. Right, let's copy this thing. Nicer if they indent. Looks nicer. Okay. And I'm going to reflect the user's choice in the text view here. So a text view here. So if the user press yes, I'll put my yes there. Right, if the user select no, I'll put no there. I'll put maybe. These buttons, they're really the same. They just different positioning. So I'll run in UC. So click, bring up the so it's just positioning, you know, yes is over here, the positive button is over here, the negative button is over here, and the neutral buttons in the middle. So click yes, and yes here. I'll click maybe, and maybe it's here. Okay. So the thing with these dialog boxes is that the way I'm using it, I'm using the alert dialog directly. The way I'm using it, if I rotate the phone, the box goes poof. So I rotate, and the box is gone. So that's a problem. That's a problem that'll be solved in the next section using the dialog fragments. But for now, I'll keep talking about the alert dialog. Everything here will apply. You know, it's just the dialog fragments just to solve that rotation issue. So that's adding buttons. You can also have it like a list. Like if you use buttons, you have up to 3 choices: your positive button, your negative button, and your neutral button. What if you want like 4 choices? Like if you want a 4th choice, you need to go to the list. The list. Okay, so you need to go to the list. I'll get rid of this. When you use a list, you know, to do more than 1 choice, you have to use set title. You can't use this thing. You can't use this thing anymore. I'm using list. Pick a letter. But it can't be a message anymore. It has to be a title, because the message, you know, the body, the center part of the dialog is taken up by the list, basically. So it's the title. Oh, okay, like that. Oh, the different styles of lists, but all 3 styles, no matter which style you use, you're gonna set title, and then you use one of these. You use set item, set multiple choice item, set single choice item. Okay, so set item. Okay, I'm gonna use demonstrate simple list first. Set item, pick a letter. What do they have, for example? So here's their basic box example. They use, okay, they have a color example. See, that's your simple list. This is your checkbox list, and that's that. Not going over that. Also radio button. Oh well, don't have it. Anyways, set items. It's character sequence of items. So set items. Oops. They want character sequence, but I think we can do this. Okay. And they want a listener, you know, when you click on A, B, C, or D. So there we go again with the copy thing, right? Select, copy, make sure I got it. See, I do paste. Yeah, paste this thing. I just pasted this thing. Oh, huh. Which one, huh? Okay, I see. So I want to see if the user prints A. You know, if the user prints A, I want to do this. Right. Well, I'll do an A here, right? If the user clicks A. So I'm gonna put this, move this out. Call it like choices. Oh. This is Java, not C#. Okay. Okay, so set items. The first argument is a bunch of strings, which I have here as ABCD. Second argument is the event handler. Right, which is the one that people which option people click on. So when people click on the first option, it's going to be a 0. So choice is, you know, bracket 0. It's going to get me A. Okay, I'll just run it. So run. This thing is okay. See, the rotation killed the box. Okay, so select B. It's B here. Select D, and so D's here. Okay, so that demonstrates the simple list. Checkbox list, just slightly different function. Oh, the event handler could be different too, right? So let me see that if it's different. Oh, so checkbox you can set if the items are checked or not. Okay. And it's on multi-click listener. So it's a different event handler. Okay, so the first argument is, you know, the items is still the same thing as this one. Yeah, the array of strings. Now the second one is check items, which is array of Boolean. Oh, it's off screen. See if I can do it here. Okay, the second element is array of Boolean. So if it's all false, then none of those things are checked, right? So I'm gonna have B select by default. Okay. Oh, excuse me. Let's see. Yeah, if I don't rotate, it's gonna persist, right? That's okay. Okay. So okay, everything false by default. And the listener. Dialog interface, copy. Oh, I lost it. Copy. Okay. So the handling is going to be the same as before, plus one more thing. Oh, this goes here. Okay, so don't need this one anymore. This is for comparison purposes and copying. Okay. So when people choose 0, I'm gonna update the text view for for the choice. 0 would be A, but I'll also store that choice here. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Actually, you could have multiple true or multiple false, right? This is a checkbox thing. So I can't simply go like this, because it's multiple choices. It's a multiple choice thing. So I don't get to copy. I have to go over the array. So I'll have to loop over the array, and print it there. And I have to use a string builder for efficiency. Right, so if the choice is bool, the boolean array, the boolean parallel array, choice is bool is a boolean array that parallels this array. Okay, I update that array first. I keep that one up to date first. Okay, if choice is bool, if this one is true, it's kind of redundant here, but and add a space here. Okay, so I'm building up a string. I'm going over this array. I'm building it up, and when I'm done building it up, so when I'm done building up, I'm gonna display in text view. Okay, so I'll run this. Hopefully I did everything right. Click. So I'll pick A, pick B. Where's the OK button? There's no OK button. Oh man. It doesn't come with an OK button. Oh well. I'll press the back button. Okay. So that's how you so that's clearly not the best option. So what happened was the list pops up, but there's no button. There's no OK button. So I had to press the back button to kind of back out. Okay, so I didn't do everything right. So here's that positive button thing, right? So this is the listener. Copy this. It's always dialog interface. Okay. And I'll put my string here. Actually, I'll display it here. Save more work. See if this works better. Okay. So if I just click on one of those choices, if I click on one of those choices, I'll just update that parallel array. And if I click the OK button, I will commit, the user selection to text view. Okay. Over here. I'll say here's the OK button. This. Okay. See A and C. Now if I display the box again, A and C should be checked, right? Because when I check A and B, excuse me, when I check A and C, I updated this array, and then when I display the dialog box again, I'm initializing the selections using the same array. So okay, so A and C will be checked. Okay, A and C are checked. Okay, that's just what I want to point out. And A, B, C. And as usual, just drive the point across, you rotate, and this whole thing goes bye-bye, okay? Okay. So this one, checkbox lets you select like multiple, checkbox lets you do multiple choice. The radio button is like single choice, so showcase that. Set single choice items. So same thing as before, but this time around it's only one item. So instead of like an array, I have to do one item. Right, the second parameter is what item got checked. You know, yeah, what? Oh, hey, that's nice. If no items checked, maybe that's better. Okay, that sounds reasonable. If I use -1, okay, and now I have a listener. Again, you know, every single time. Can I copy anything? I can copy this over, huh? Oh, I can't. That's gone. So before I had that, you know, that array. So this time it's just an integer. Think I right? Oh, didn't get copy much. Oh, and again, I have an OK button, and this time, you know, there's only one choice, so no need to, you know, scan the array. Just go here directly. Okay, so hopefully this will work. Display radio button, so ABCD, but only one choice. Save the choice in the choices int, and update the label in the window. Oh, things here always rotates. Okay, that. So okay, so the -1 thing works. So initial choice is -1, so nothing got selected. If I press OK, it dies. Oh boy, so that's a problem. That's a bug. Yeah, because it's -1. Choices 0. You shouldn't make a choice. Okay? Okay, so now hopefully it will work. Yeah, so you can't rely on choices being, you know, being a valid value. I mean, the user can make no choice, right? Don't make a choice. You shouldn't make a choice. Okay? Now this time I'll make a choice. So notice you can only choose one at a time. So B or C or D or A. Okay. So A. Okay. And that concludes the presentation of the alert dialog box. You can use it to build up dialog boxes, but once you rotate the screen, it's gone. Everything's reset. Also notice that you can't specify your own layout in this approach. You're using what they are providing you, the buttons or the lists, which is actually good enough most of the time anyways. But if you want to use your own layout file, so that's the next section, using custom layout and taking care of the rotation thing. So now I'll go over the dialog fragment class. The dialog fragment class is the correct way to build dialog boxes. You could build a dialog box using the alert dialog class directly, but if when you rotate your screen, the box goes bye-bye. So that's not totally correct, although that might be good enough for your programming. So that's definitely the easier way to go, which is why I introduced it first. Now, in the online guide for the dialog, they want you to do the right thing. So they use the dialog fragment from the very beginning. Okay, and I'll talk about dialog fragment right now. The thing is that they use this, but they don't really explain why they're using it the way that they're using it. So, and remember, you're trying to do two things. Okay, the dialog fragment wraps around. You can use it to wrap around an alert dialog, to solve the rotation issue. So, and there's actually more than one approach. So the approach, that they use on this guide is, I do agree that that's the way to go, but I'm going to showcase a different approach. That way we can learn this in a little bit more depth. Why is it they're doing what they're doing? Why is the guide choosing this particular unsafe instance state approach? Okay, the alert dialog can also be a wrapper around your own custom layout. So you can have a dialog box that's of your own custom layout. So again, there's some different approaches here. Different approaches here. So again, I showcase more than one approach. They have. I basically agree with the approach. Okay, I agree with the approach in the sky, but I showcase a different approach to try to bring about a better understanding, a deeper understanding of why the guide chose a particular approach. So first, I'll try to do a message box as before, and then I'll be doing an input box to illustrate this custom layout feature. Okay, so I have here in Eclipse, I have a basic example generated by the wizard. Just nothing there, just on create, and just this. I will eventually need a button and a text view. Oh. So I'll change the linear layout, okay. Chop off all kinds of junk here. Simplify it a little bit while I'm at it. I'll just put an X here. To showcase, when the screen rotates, the text will, when I rotate the screen, the text is going to reset to X. Okay, because when you rotate a screen, the activity gets regenerated from scratch, basically. Okay, so text view button. So the button is going to be like before, it triggers the dialog box, basically. And the user input, I'm going to stuff it here in the text view. So I'll give it ID. The height and width, and that'll just kind of. So okay, so it should be okay, right? Oh, I want it to be a vertical, right? So okay, so kind of zoom in a little teeny. Okay, text view and a button. So first thing is to you have to create this class, or a derived class from this. Okay, so I just copied it, but so new class, new Java class. Okay, message box, and just to be formal, yeah, so like message box underscore dialog box. So again, like the fragment, you have, you know, this, the official one, but that one doesn't work in the older devices. And you have a different one, the support.v4.app version, the support library version. This version will work on older devices, but Google says if you don't need to support old devices, you should just be using this one. Presumably at some point they'll, you know, stop supporting this. Okay, so like that, drag it up. You can see I click on the finish button, and same thing as before, you know, API level 11. So go down here, make it 11, just like before. Okay, now the thing's gone. So remember for Fragment, there's that on create view thing. You know, for Fragment. See, this is a kind of Fragment, right? Just to be sure, I think. Does it inherit from Fragment? I shouldn't. Oh. So this class does inherit from Fragment. So when you're using a Fragment, there's on create view. That's where you generate your view. And when you're using dialog, you could try to do that too. Yeah, it's a set view, but some people use on create view. But I'll use on create dialog. That's also what they do in the guide, I believe. Yeah, in the guide also they're using on create dialog. And return a dialog here, okay? So oh, it's not indented. Okay, so this is why I create the dialog box. Same stuff as before, right? I'm doing a message box. You know, it's the same stuff, right? Builder. Oh, shoot. So I have to import this first. Drag this out. Get more room. Drag. So I need a context. Theme. Just use this one. Oh wait, no, okay. It's like a fragment, right? The dialog fragment. This my class is a dialog fragment, which is a fragment. So for the context, you use the get activity. It's being hosted by some activity, right? Oh, why does Eclipse never get this? Huh. Okay. So set message and set positive button, right? So hello world. Actually, this is hard coding it, huh? So actually the correct approach is here. Default empty string. Okay, so the correct approach is that in the main activity, okay, somewhere here I'm gonna like do this message box, right? And then here, this is, I'll set the message here. Like that. Dot show. Okay, so more later. I'll do this a little later. I'll talk about this show part a little later. So the idea is the user of the class is gonna set the message. I'm just gonna hard code it here, but okay. The button I should be able to hard code, right? Oh, although you never know, okay. But for this example, I'll hard code the button. I won't have an event handler, just a message box. Create. So builder.creates will return alert dialog. So that's the return value, right? The return value is a dialog, and I'll go away. Okay, the return value is going to be a dialog, and builder.create is going to create the dialog, just return. Okay, so same thing here, and again the show, but the show is a little different. The show is over here, right? Previously the show is kind of simple, but in this case, let's see what's in the show. The fragment manager and tag. Okay, so fragment manager is the get fragment manager. This is how you create fragments in code. You know, because this dialog fragment is a kind of fragment. Previously, I created a fragment in XML using the fragment tag. The other way to do a fragment is, you know, like this. Something like this. So you use a fragment manager to create it. And tag, I'll put a null for now. Yeah, I was going to show you what the tag is. Actually, it's better to do it outside. All right, there's a show. There's a show. Click. Okay. So it's a tag for this fragment as per transaction.add. The tag lets you retrieve the fragment at a later point. So I was hoping that would. Oh, show fragment transaction. So if you're wondering what the tag is for, in the next slide, I will have an example here. Find fragment by tag. You can use the tag to retrieve a fragment, basically. See if I can see it here. Tag. Okay. Previous fragment manager. Tag. Look for the tag. Okay, so find fragment by tag. Is that the only use? Find fragment by tag. What's the tag? Find fragment by tag given the tag. So it looks like that's only use for I mean, as far as the fragment manager object is concerned, right? You can, the only place where it's referenced is this find fragment by tag. Also, back to the topic. I was talking about a show. So for now, I use no. And later on, I'll have an example using the tag to locate the fragment. So this should be it. So I'll be running it. Oh. This hello world. Let me. Oh, like, why is this thing always? It's always in the wrong rotation. It's like. It's always shown, huh? Oops. Should have done that. Okay. It's always shown. On create, it's always showing it. Oops. I should have it shown as a result of a button click or something, right? So here's the button. So I just need to button. Always have that blank line here. Always have blank line here. Okay. So I'm not constantly running it anymore. Just when people click on it, I do it. Okay. Yeah, why am I at this? Why don't I just get a reference to this as well, since I'm already on the screen. Oh. So I just get a reference to text view. Oh. There's a message box. Okay. So what if I rotate, right? Oh, it's gone. It's still there. It's just that, the message is gone. The box is still there. So it's not like before, before the whole thing was gone, right? So that brings up to the main point of using dialog fragment. You can use it to deal with the rotation problem. So in this slide, they didn't really emphasize that, but I can tell if you go through this, guide, in this guide, you see they're using this approach. There's another approach. So I'll go over this approach first, because I will be using this approach in the future, right? So I'll just go over this approach so I don't have to change my code back to the preferred approach that I prefer. So this approach, because it is a fragment, so people are like, hey, why don't I use set retain instance? Because it's a fragment, right? So go to on create. And then do the set, retain instance and true, right? Is that supposed to fix everything or what, right? See what happened was when you rotate the message, became nothing again, because the whole thing got recreated. The activity got recreated, this dialog thing got recreated, and the message got set to a blank string. So the hello world thing disappeared. So what if I set a retain fragment, right? So this should be retained. Show that actually doesn't work. Show anyways. Oh, the rotations again. Oh well. Okay, so if you rotate, the box gets dismissed. Okay, I rotate. Oh my goodness. Horrible. So one more time, a little bit more correct. Rotate. Box gets dismissed. Okay. So then, people, because I see this online. So then what people try to do next time, to fix it, so-called fix, is to prevent it from getting dismissed. So they write this stuff inside on destroy view to override the dismissal of the button. Oops. Try that. So that should work. Oh man, rotate. So if I rotate it, it should be okay now. Or at least so it seems. Okay. And people are like, oh, that works. It's not fully okay, but as far as this example goes, this is working. So what's happening is that rotate. No. So what's happening is that the dialog box never gets dismissed to begin with. So the underlying activity is being recreated, but the dialog boxes are still up there, floating up there. It's still the same dialog box before and after the rotation. And this approach, because the problem with this approach has to do with the event handler thing, listener attachment. So I'll that's the topic of the next slide. Okay, but if you don't have an event handler or something like that, this seems to work. Okay, so go back to this approach, which will work with the event handler thing that I mentioned. But the other approach, I'll go to the other approach. See, the nice thing about this approach, normally in a fragment, you do want to use a set retain instance, because saving things to that bundle is a lot of work, right? Okay, this approach on save instance bundle. Get rid of this. Won't be using this. Also won't be using this. Save instance state. Okay, so the other approach is like when you rotate, you save all your stuff inside a bundle, right? And then when you create when the Android recreate the dialog box, you restore your stuff here. The reason is that in a fragment, in a normal fragment, not a dialog fragment, a normal fragment, you usually do want to take this kind of approach, because saving variables to a bundle can be difficult if your GUI is complicated. But usually in dialog box, you don't have that many variables to save, so this approach is not a problem. Okay, so do this. So you save the message in there, right? So they don't have put string. I don't think they have put string. Do they have put string? See, they have short, sparse. Oh, they have put string. Yay. I was going to use the put character sequence. They do have put string. Okay. That's it. So put it here, and then over here. Well, the very first time it's going to be null, right? So you retrieve it by get string, since there's put string, then there's get string. Okay, and it has to be the same key, so this is your lookup entry point, lookup key, lookup tag, whatever. So put string, save into this slot, right? In this, imagine it's a big file cabinet or something. There's a little slot called, little folder called message. Retrieve it via the same key. I think that should do it. So when I rotate, I should put my breakpoint here, or nah. So I'm not gonna go for the breakpoint thing. It's not worth it. It's not that complicated. So when I rotate, it's gonna go here. I'm gonna save my string. So the Android is gonna destroy the existing dialog box and the existing activity, and Android will recreate the activity and recreate the dialog box. And when they recreate a dialog box, they come over here because of the this thing is part of the creation life cycle. So when they recreate the dialog box, it's gonna get here. I'm gonna retrieve the message that I saved previously, and I'll have the right message. Okay, so okay. Oh. So I rotate, and the message remains. So this is how you save your thing across rotations. And the main reason this is better than the other guy, this one is there's no hack required because you're interfering with the life cycle thing here. Just the main benefit of this is that you don't have to save variables. If you have some really complicated data structure, you can't just simply use put string, right? You have to serialize it or whatever. In that case, this alternative approach is less code. Okay, so that's the rotation issue. Next issue is a custom layout. So this is the message box, and the other one my example for this is going to be the input box. So it's like a dialog box that has a text box for you to type in your stuff. So see if I can get something on input box. So yeah, input box is Visual Basic only, I believe. This is input box. There's different styles of input boxes. Input box here. Yeah, input box is native inside Visual Basic, but for all the other languages, like such as right now, I don't think there's an input box. That's why people have to make their own input boxes. Okay. So, and it's the dialog thing again, right? Dialog, fragment thing. So it's either v4 or this. So so that's the base class and finish. Now there's also a layout. So put it here, drag it back here. Also need new layout. So that's my layout. Yeah, there's no such thing. There's no such box with an input, the text field. So text, edit text. Actually, ET for edit text. You always have to have width and height, but I think in this case they're not going to warn you, right? Are they going to warn you? Oh, they do warn you. Yeah, so they warn you on this screen, but they don't warn you over here. Well, oh, they want an input type. input types, the keyboard, right? It's gonna be text. So if I leave out higher width, they don't warn me, but they do warn me over here. I was saying that. Okay, so width as usual, match parent, and height usually is wrap content. A layout file just to do the one text box. Okay. So I created my layout. Inflate the layout in set view. Now I've seen people use the other one, right? So what you do in the fragment is the on create view. So very similar. So set view. Yeah, so that's okay. This is okay. If I get ahead of myself, I'm looking at the API guide for dialogs, like API guide. Think user interface dialogs. So I was looking at set view. Yeah, like I said, there's different ways to expand this layout file inside of this thing. So I'm using set view because that's what they're using here. Okay. So they're still using the alert dialog builder, but instead of all those, also this in this approach, you still have the positive button and negative button, but they're creating that view thing. Okay, so that. Okay, just this, and they're getting the inflator from get activity get inflator. Okay, it's always wonder where's the inflator, right? How they're getting inflator. So just a compare and contrast in the fragment, they're getting an inflator from it's being passed in. So dialog fragment. Oh, whoops! I'm on this slide. Custom layout. Okay. Right, on create dialog. Why don't I just copy and paste this stuff, right? So what are you doing? Okay. Builder, inflator, set view. Pass null as the parent view because this is going to be dialog layout. Did I mention about the... Okay, so I didn't talk about the ID thing or something. So no need to worry about the attached to root, right? There's no root. Root is null. Okay, the root. The root is null, so no need to worry about the attached root thing. Okay, so my layout resource is a little different. Layout input box, that's it. So I'm using the same. I'm doing the same stuff. So again, return builder that I create here. Oh, need the OK button, right? For now, I'm gonna put a null here, but that's the next topic. So for right now, I just want to display my dialog box on screen, and I'll worry about this input thing. This is where it gets. This is where I present the alternate approach for educational purposes. Okay. Oh, there's also title. Well, gotta be a question, right? Okay. You can't just have an empty box for people. Oh, what are they supposed to do, right? So title. So builder that set title, title, okay. Am I missing? Okay, so I'm inflating. I have a title. That's the next step. Okay, I should be able to run it now. Okay, so this is the message box stuff. So previously I click that button, the message box pops up. Okay, now it's gonna be input, right? And it's a title because the message is the body of the dialog box, and that's being custom generated. What's your name? What is your name? I don't know my name. Same code. Okay. It's okay, run it. So click this. Now the rotation support isn't there yet, right? So when I rotate, that thing's be gone, right? Notice how the what is your name thing is gone here. The what is your name. Okay, so just before I go further, let me fix that rotation issue. So dialog layout, I'll close this. Is nothing, not going to be doing anything more there. Okay. Wrong one. This one. So I'll do a save first. Right now I'll do a restore save instance. Put string title. Okay, so I save there. If this bundle is not null, see, the first time I run this on create, it's gonna be null, right? So okay, so this should take care of the rotation thing. Just show it on screen. As usual, software's messed up. Okay, so rotate. And the what is your name title is still there. So the rotation thing got fixed. Now I press OK. My intention is to have the Lewis show up here, but that's not true. Okay, so that brings me to the next topic. How do I do the event handling for that OK button? Okay. So right now it's null. There's no event handler. So now the next step is write the event handler, and that's where, again, there's more than one approach. It has to do with the attachment of the event. So they recommend you to use an interface so that you have type checking features. Okay, do I have it? So over here, somewhere here, right? Passing events back to the dialog host. They recommend you have an interface, and then the hosts will implement the interface. Now, okay. So, but that's not the first thing that comes across my mind, right? The first thing that come across people's mind, or my mind included, will be like, well, why don't you just set the interface onto the control? See, you have a button to handle the click event. You button dot set, on click listener. Okay, so So I'll actually follow this approach first, and I'll show you why that's kind of some problem with it, and which is why they're using the activity as they're implementing it inside, as the activity. So the activity is also the listener. Okay, but that's not the first approach, because we're always doing this, right? We're constantly doing this. So it seems like the event handler should be tied to the object. Okay, so I'm gonna follow this more natural approach first and show you what's the problem with it. So first you need the handler. You need the interface, right? So make my own interface, I guess. Oh, it needs to be public, so needs to be export, that the user of this class can see it. What should I call it? What's the button? Button is on click listener. Well, I guess okay or something. Okay listener. What's the button called? On click listener. So I should call it on okay listener. It's capitalized too. So okay. So I say on okay. Listener. I guess I'll use that name. And what function they have? They have on click. So I must have on okay, right? On click public void. On okay. And what am I gonna get? I'm gonna get the user input, right? User input. So that's the interface. So I'm gonna have a private variable, say and I'm gonna have a public setter function, just like for a button you have set on click listener. I'll just copy it here. So instead of set on click listener, I'll set on OK listener. Should do this. It's more consistency on the OK part, right? Like this, right? Okay, so the plan is to make it like a button. So they have this input box. Here's my little set on OK listener. New. Here's my of course Eclipse is not going to do that. How did I do this? Eclipse always leave out the dot, right? And Eclipse will always put an extra line here. Okay, so it's just like the button now, sort of nested inside of it though. Set on OK listener. Okay, semicolon here. Okay, and I'm gonna go to text view, right? I'm gonna put the user input inside the text view. Okay. Okay, and this actually works as long as you don't rotate it. What? So over here, when people press the positive button, I'm gonna write the event handler for that. I think it's dialog interface. So when people click on the OK button, I'm gonna use my onClick listener dot on OK. User input is the text view, right? Where's the view? Oh, okay. View v equals this. Yeah, okay. So before this whole thing was inside of this, right? So I just brought it out. I need that view. I need that view to get the ID, right? Find view by ID. I need to get a reference to the to that text box that people type into. Okay, so I need a reference to the edit text. Okay. So edit text. We'll get it over here. Why? Why can't resolve to type? Huh. Save. Okay. So edit text, I'll get it here. And that's where the user input is from. Get text to string. Okay. Okay, so when people click the OK button, I will use the listener dot on OK, which should bring it over here, you know, text view dot set text. Okay, and it should be okay. I'll put a breakpoint on that. This has a problem, I know. If you rotate, so I'm gonna run it. So I'm gonna click the OK now, and you see the, it goes over here. Okay, let's do it one more time. Rush. It becomes rush. Okay. The problem is when you rotate the device. So I'm gonna put this in debug now to trigger that breakpoint, show you what's going on. Debug device chooser. So now I'll rotate it, and it's gonna trigger that thing. Okay. Okay, I click OK. So it goes over here. If I let it continue, it's gonna fail because this thing is null. Okay, so this listener here right now is it's on null. So I'll briefly try to explain what happens. Basically, is when you rotate, your dialog box got recreated. and this listener, the new dialog box no longer has this. Is the listener reference is null. So, and even if you can retain the previous listener, it won't work. So I'll kind of try to draw a picture to show why. So I drew a picture of the situation. The application has an activity object and an input box dialog fragment object. The input box has an on OK listener. That's the event handler object. This object has that function, the on OK function. This object is referencing the text view object that's in the current activity. Now, when you rotate, just draw a red dashed line here, so representing the rotate. When you rotate, a new activity is going to be created, and also there will be a new text view object. So I just drew the new activity and a new text view object. And then there's also a new input box object. This is all done by the Android framework. Now, when a new input box is created, the on OK listener will be null. Because if you look at the code, the on OK listener, look at where it's created. Right, the on OK listener is created here. Like, it's only when it's when people click the button. They click the button, and the event handler for the button will create the on OK listener. So after rotation, the on OK listener is null, and the previous on OK listener is pointing to the wrong text view, because after rotation, this green thing, this green text view, and the green activity thing, this old version of the activity got deleted by the operating system. So the new one, the new on OK listener is null, and the old one is pointing to the wrong control, the wrong text view. That's why after rotation, taking the current approach, after rotation, this on OK listener needs to be reattached. Okay, so this is the first time that's it's attached. When people click on the button, I use this to attach an event handling object. Now you rotate it, you have to do this attachment again. So I'm going back to the Android dialog, the Android API guide dialogs. The way they did the event handling, here passing event back to the host. They're using the activity. Okay, so they have an interface, and the activity is implementing that interface. So that's their way of avoiding this problem in the situation that I'm coding in. My on OK listener, when I rotate it, it's no good. The new one is null. The old one is pointing to the wrong text view. But if you use the activity as the event handler, you just call get activity. You always get the latest activity. You always get the current up-to-date activity, so you don't have to reattach the listener. Okay, so I'm going to do it both ways for just to show. So I will reattach the listener, and then I'll do it again using the activity as the event handler. So I'm back into the code, the main activity code here. Normally the event handler for on OK gets attached when the button is clicked. Right? People click the button, build the dialog box and attach event handler. So in addition to that, whenever on create, whenever the activity is created, also I might need to attach the event handler. And so the key is actually locating this fragment. Okay, so it all starts when people create the fragment the very first time. So the sequence events is like this. People click on the button, the fragment gets allocated, the dialog box gets allocated, and the fragment gets displayed via this show. Now this is where the tag comes in. The tag. If I give it a tag, input box tag, okay. Now this fragment has a tag. This dialog box has a tag. And then I look for the existence of this fragment. So that's the get fragment manager dot find fragment by tag. Find fragment by tag, and I'll look for that fragment. Okay. Find fragment by tag, returning a fragment object. Oh God. Let's type in. I'm using the non-support library, so basically Fragment, Dialog Fragment, they all have like 2 versions. So I try to locate the fragment. If it's non-null, then it's that input box thing that I created, right? So if f is a non-null, it didn't get shown. Oh well. Okay, so and then here I reattach the handler again, like that. Okay, so let's just go over a sequence of events. Okay, the very first time that my main activity get created, I'm gonna get here, I'm gonna try to find this dialog box. It doesn't exist, right? It hasn't been created yet. So then the people click the button, the user clicks the button, the dialog box gets allocated, it gets the event handling object, the dialog box gets created using this tag, and then you rotate the screen. When you rotate the screen, the execution runs, it goes through this thing again. When you rotate the screen, the activity gets recreated, and it goes over here. Now this stuff doesn't get executed, right? It's just this stuff only gets executed. Stuff here, this stuff only gets executed if people click on the button. So your recreating activity gets here, it really hops over this stuff. It gets to here. I try to locate that fragment. Now the dialog box, if it's still floating around, I'll be able to locate the dialog box using this find fragment by tag thing, because it's the same tag. I find the dialog box and then I update that handler. Okay, so that event handler will be pointing to the correct text view object. Remember, at this point, that handler is null. Okay, so hopefully this will fix that rotation issue. So I'll now run it. I'm gonna enter OK first time, so just show what happens. So notice how this got turned into Lewis, right? So I enter new name, so I rotate. Now notice how the text becomes X, because X is the default value of that text view. So that's just to show that the whole activity got recreated. Okay. And now I'm gonna hit OK. I'm gonna hit OK here. Okay, and this thing gets updated. Okay. Whereas before I put a breakpoint there, and to show that it's the event handler is null at that point. So it would have crashed before, but now it's working. So this scheme works, right? This scheme of locating the fragment if it's still around and then updating it as necessary. This scheme will definitely work. But it's a hassle, and it's not the official approach. And I would go with this. I'm just using this approach because I've seen it online. I've seen it done by other people, and I think it's it gives some insight to what's going on. So now I implement it using this approach. I'll just have the activity implemented. So take out this fix here. Also take out this. There's no need to set a listener anymore. The listener's activity is always the activity. Okay, and that's the only way to make sure that I have the right listener. Okay. Oh, it's got this. It's got that leftover brace from the new listener. This one I have to implement that interface, right? Okay, so I'm going to implement the interface using, so the activity will be the listener object basically. Add unimplemented methods. So down here. Okay, so I do the text view thing, right? The text view. Set text. Do this thing here. No, I won't be. There's no listener object embedded inside anymore. The listener object, the event handler, is going to be the hosting activity. So this thing goes. Right. So when people bring up the input box and they click OK, before I run this listener, but now it's it's not going to be there. It's just going to be the hosting activity. It's going to be get activity, right? And it's just typecasted over to the on OK listener. Okay, so I'll get the hosting activity. That's going to be the listening object, the event handling object. So cast it and just call it right there. Okay. So let's run this. There goes the rotation thing again. Should I rotate it? Okay, make it right. Make it right. I figure they'll never fix these problems with my mobiler. I'm just saying. What's gonna happen is, they're just gonna move to other software because the newer versions of Android has the screen capture capabilities built in. So, Anyways, so here's just the same experiment as before. Just have some non-default in the background and some random stuff here. Oh, oldish. Okay, so at this point I'll rotate. See, the Lewis in the background is gonna disappear into X, the default string. I'll rotate again, whatever. Rotate as many times as I want now, right? Now that it's working. So press OK, so it goes in there. So the correct, the handler is correct. Right. In other words, the get activity will always find the hosting activity, will always find the correct event handling object. I want to point out that I'm using get activity. That is I think that's the easiest way to do it. In the official example, they're using on attach. So let's just go over that a little bit. By official example, I of course mean this thing, right? API guides, user interface, dialogs, talks about how to make dialogs, passing events back to dialog host. So they have their interface and they have their activity implemented. The main difference is they have this on attach thing. So they have this object, right? They have a listener object, and they're setting this object in this thing, not this. And I don't see the point of that. Look, on activity is always available. It's not like you're providing any kind of encapsulation or something, right? People can always call on activity to get the full activity, and that's what you're doing anyways. That's what you're doing in this code. You're just casting the activity. You're casting it into a listener object. So there's no need to do that because this activity is always readily available, via the on activity call. Right? There's no need to pretend. You're pretending that you have a listener object where you really don't. You're just using the activity as your listener. So this is a whole bunch of extra code, basically. But it's the same idea. It's the exact same thing that I'm doing. Okay. So some final minor points. Right now the input box starts and there's no keyboard. The keyboard doesn't pop up automatically. You have to select the text box or the edit text to get the keyboard. So this way is to get the get the keyboard to show up automatically. So inside on create view, so there. Just saying, you cannot use it in here. It's like if I paste that code in this thing, it won't work. That's why it is on create view. Because there's something in the code that's not available there. It's like this. Yeah, I think window manager is not available or something. It's not available at this point in time. Okay, so now I should run it, and hopefully when the dialog box shows up, the keyboard is going to be there. So click, and the keyboard pops up automatically. I don't have to select this, right? So they basically just put the focus in the text box, and then this code I got off online to force the keyboard to pop up. Okay, so that's one thing to make the example complete. Now we'll go over the pickers. The pickers are a kind of dialog boxes. So if you go to the dialog guide, down here they have pickers. These pickers, I'll just go over one of them. I'll just use set date. It's really the same thing, and there's no new concept. So let's just go over it, because so you create a new class. Every time you make a dialog, right, you make a class. So what do they use? Date picker. See, that's the thing. Why don't they just wrap this inside a dialog fragment, so I don't have to do it, right? Just like I'll call it slightly different. I'll just call it date picker dialog fragment. Okay, so I have this, just a different name, and pretty much use all of this. Here's the other thing. The event handling is again kind of convoluted for them, right? Control Shift O to bring in the imports. So this dialog box, it's called the date picker dialog. So instead of the this the other stuff, so far I've been using the alert dialog, and even when I use the custom layout, I'm still using the alert dialog. So the input box example, I'm using alert dialog. Message box example, I'm also using the alert dialog. So I do want to go over one more. I just go over this example because this time they're not using an alert dialog. So they're using the date picker dialog. That's activity, so doing it by get activity. See, this is the event handler. No, this is oh, might as well look at the constructor here. Online. Okay, so there. So Eclipse is not that clear. You could use the theme for second parameter, or it could be the event handler. This is the event handler for this dialog box. And callback in year, month, and day. Okay, so they're using this. There. Oh, I see. I'm not getting the correct one because there's a problem in the code, right? Okay. So what they're doing in this example, this is the, I just clicked on the picker webpage. So in this example, they are again doing that thing where the event handler is the object, the fragment object itself. But then what are you going to do, right? Like, what are you going to do inside this thing? This is where the event handling code, this is where the event handler is. Right? Inside this thing, what are you going to do? You're just going to call the activity. So why do I need this at all, right? I mean, so it's one of the convoluted. So instead of, so the event handler is going to be, again, activity, get activity. But of course I have to typecast it, right? I have to cast it to what do they need? All right, the event handler is this thing. Okay, here we have here. There. Let me go here. Yeah, the first one's context, because it's kind of like the same thing, right? Context is get activity, and the second argument, event handler, is also get activity, but I'm going to typecast it here. So in order to use this, the main activity has to implement that too then. I mean, if you don't do this, you still have to do something similar. Oh, comma here. Shift O, bring that in. Oh, can't figure out where it's coming from. See, Control Shift O. Huh. Okay, I'll take care of that first. Where does it come from? Android.app. manually add it in. Okay. Okay. There. Add unimplemented methods. I'll just put it in a text view again, right? So it's got the year, month, and day. So here in US at least, it's the month, right? The month goes first. Followed by the day. Followed by the year. Okay. Oh, get rid of that. Okay. So the event handling object will once again be main activity. I mean, because what are they going to do there, right? I mean, this code. Do something with the date chosen by a user. But yeah, what are you going to do? I mean, inside this thing, right? Inside a dialog, you don't have any information. So probably they pass it back to main activity for display or something. So most likely they're doing it this way. Okay. I'll look at some of the other stuff in the code. There's not much there. All they do is they use a calendar object they get the current year, the current month, the current day from the calendar object. And they use that to initialize it. So this is when the date picker dialog box pops up, it's going to be using the current month and day and year. Alright, so I'll just run this. Hopefully it works. It's getting really late. I'll have ditch tomorrow. Oh. Didn't really finish the coding, huh? Yeah, the coding's still starting the old thing. Huh? So there's no need to supply any parameters. So just call show directly. Oh man, this thing's always bad. So I have the date here. When's it? Oh, it's almost I pressed cancel. Okay. June 6th, right? D-Day, it's almost D-Day. And it's what, the 70th anniversary, 70 years ago? So there. So the date shows up here. Okay, so that's basically this example. Yeah, so I'm not gonna go over the other picker. It's like the same thing.